Okay, my name is Jane Kilthey, and I live in Cowichan Bay. Mayor Douglas, members of council, thank you for this opportunity. We're here on behalf of the Cowichan Climate Hub, a collaboration of local nonprofits, faith groups, farmers, fishers, small businessmen, and others. And as a midwife working in maternal health for 32 years, I'm pleased to be allowed to bring forward concerns from Regional Health Officer Dr. Shannon Waters, who can't join us today, on the health risks of methane gas, aka natural gas. There's increasing evidence that fossil gas consistently leaks into the indoor air of homes heating or cooking with gas and poses risks to those living there, especially children. Nitrous dioxide, co-emitted with methane, increases the risk of childhood asthma. 41 studies showed children living in homes with gas stoves had a 24% higher risk of lifetime asthma, a 42% increased risk of having asthma currently as a child in the home. In a recent study on gas stove emissions, the carcinogen benzene associated with increased risks of childhood leukemia was found migrating throughout homes beyond the kitchen, elevating bedroom benzene concentrations above chronic health benchmarks for hours after the stove was turned off. Gas combustion from stoves is also linked to indoor carbon monoxide and formaldehyde. These risks alone make it worth considering stopping building homes with gas. In this time of both health and climate risks, heat waves, droughts, forest fires, storms, and floods, BC's new zero carbon step code offers local governments the opportunity to significantly reduce their communities' greenhouse gas emissions with bylaws requiring decarbonization and electrification of new residential and commercial buildings. Buildings in North American cities and towns generate 40% of those communities' annual CO2 and methane emissions. Methane is over 80 times more potent than CO2 across a 20-year period, resulting in the most severe and immediate climate impacts, driving temperatures higher, faster, and accelerating damage caused by a destabilizing climate. Most urban methane emissions come from space and water heating using fossil gas and from gas stoves and fireplaces, and gas continues to expand in new construction. May 1st, the BC government gave local governments the tools you need to reduce emissions in new buildings, the Zero Carbon Step Code. The code empowers you to pass bylaws requiring new buildings to be fully powered by electricity. At Nanaimo Council last week, BC Hydro reported that they have the capacity for the full electrification of new buildings now. The City of Victoria and the District Municipality of Saanich have enacted already Level 4 zero carbon bylaws for new builds, both for Group C up to 6 stories and Group D and E for buildings over 6 stories and commercial buildings. Nanaimo committed to adopting a similar bylaw before July 1st, 2024. In Nanaimo's consultations, local builders told them complying with the highest level of the Zero Carbon Step Code is very doable. Local builders said that it was more straightforward than complying with the higher levels of the BC Energy Step Code, and that zero carbon is what people are telling them they want in new homes. Given we live in the land of trees falling on power lines, the Zero Carbon Code also allows energy-efficient wood stoves and gas fireplace for backup during power outages. An added benefit of electrification is electric heat pumps provide both heating and cooling, something fossil gas can't provide, at 2/3 the cost of baseboard heating. Cooling is critical with our longer, hotter heat waves to reduce heat risks. As extreme heat becomes more common and intense, many people, like me, are choosing to install heat pumps in their current homes. With a heat pump, we're more comfortable now, and our hydro costs went down. By requiring new buildings to be zero carbon, we will save money, be healthier, and reduce emissions. Across BC, as you know, we continue to see large active wildfires, towns burned, ecosystems destroyed, smoke-filled skies, and lack of rain and dry forests and soils increase fire risk, challenging farmers, and leaving our watersheds with flows low enough and waters warm enough to stress our salmon. Add the evidence of serious health risks for those living or working in indoor spaces with methane gas, and it's all connected. We ask Council to create bylaws to decarbonize new buildings. The bylaw-making powers are yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Valerie Russell and I live on Pacific Drive in Maple Bay. Climate change is happening and it's happening faster than we were hoping it would. It's no longer our grandchildren's problem. Though I live in Maple Bay, I'm also a graduate student at UBC in the Faculty of Forestry, Department of Forest and Conservation Sciences. In all of my research and in speaking to countless scientists, I have learned of their fear for our future. It is palpable. And yet they continue on doing what they can to make our future just that little bit less painful as we sit and watch over 2.25 million hectares of our beautiful province burn in the province's worst wildfire season in recorded history. As a whole, BC has become warmer and wetter over the last century. We are experiencing more extreme rainfall events and drier conditions. Less rain will fall as snow, leading to a decrease in our snowpacks. And our river ecosystems rely on these snowpacks to sustain them through the summer. We can see the effects of the warming planet in our valley that we call home. The rainfall patterns are changing and the temperatures are rising, increasing our risk of wildfires and killing our salmon. We have a great location for farming and raising our own food, but we are at the mercy of one bad summer hailstorm, heat dome, wildfire, or drought, and we can lose it all. We all need to do our part to transition to the lower carbon future that is needed, that is required for us to be able to enjoy this valley as people have done for millennia. There are many ways that we can mitigate these upcoming changes. We are here today to speak to you about one way that we can help. Overall, 80% of greenhouse gas emissions in the last decade come from the extraction, transportation, and burning of gas and oil. But let's focus on one particularly bad fossil fuel, methane. Methane, for the largest part, is the result of fracking. It comes from the northeast corner of the province and is piped here. Also known as natural gas, it's a carbon-intensive fossil fuel. It's a powerful greenhouse gas, many times worse than carbon dioxide. A little goes a long way to heating the planet. It is an energy-intensive process to extract it from the ground and ship it to our doors, where much is lost due to leakage. And it is a water-intensive process when we are heading into a time period of increasing summer droughts. Buildings in North America produce over 40% of the annual carbon dioxide and methane emissions, as you've already heard here today. We use it in our gas stoves, fireplaces, heat our homes. We bring it into the valley and let it escape into the air, into our very homes where it's affecting the lives of our residents. In 2021, our province released the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030 to help guide us to cleaner future. And this year, on May 1st, they adopted the Zero Carbon Step Code, giving local governments the power to pass bylaws restricting the use of fossil fuels in new buildings. So our ask is the following. Given the increasing climate impacts we see around us and the evidence of serious health risks, especially to children, posed by living or working in indoor spaces heated by natural gas, we ask North Cowichan Council to move forward on a zero-carbon bylaw for new buildings at Level 4, EL4, of BC's new Zero Carbon Step Code. Specifically, we are asking North Cowichan Council to establish a bylaw where all building permits submitted for residential Group C up to 6-story on or after September 1st, 2024 are required to meet BC Zero Carbon Step Code 4, all electrification, and all building permits submitted for residential buildings over 6 stories and commercial buildings, Group D and E, on or after January 1st, 2025, be required to meet these same requirements, following in the footsteps of the City of Victoria and the Municipality of Saanich, which adopted these zero-carbon bylaws for new construction in July this year, and the Nanaimo City Council, which last week committed to implement the same bylaws as of July 2024. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Russell and Ms. Kilthey. Yeah, appreciate the request, although I will stress that our practice here at council is we typically don't make a decision related to a delegation at the same meeting. So Councilor Justice, I'll turn it to you for the first question.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank you both for coming and speaking to us tonight. You may know that staff, you may not know that staff is preparing a presentation for council on the zero carbon step code. And I was actually more or less expecting it, I don't know, during the summer or perhaps even at this meeting, but it's not here. I wonder, not a question for you, but maybe Mr. Farkas could help me. Do we have any, do you have an update on when we might see that presentation on the zero carbon step code?
We're expecting to bring a staff report forward at the end of September or perhaps early October at the latest.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Manhas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you both for your presentations. I have a few questions for you guys. Thank you for presentations. So, I'm assuming both of you guys have heat pumps. And what's your secondary use of secondary heating right now? Do you have a secondary source of heat? You're electric, and Ms. Russell?
This one.
Yeah.
We're all electric
Okay.
in our house.
Electric.
Okay. How much greenhouse gas is emitted in North Cowichan on an annual basis? Do you have any idea?
I'm not very good at remembering the numbers. I have read your regular annual report on greenhouse gases, but I would refer you to your own report. Sorry.
Yeah, don't expect you to know that information, Ms.
Yeah,
Kilthey. It is included in our climate action.
Yeah,
energy
Yeah.
update.
I
And-
know, I just thought because they brought this forward that they would have done their research.
As I say, I don't.
Yes, okay.
I'm not going to guarantee I could quote the numbers, but we did get a
Understand.
report about the use of gas in this building and all other buildings. I don't happen to have it with me, but we
Understandable.
can follow up. Yeah.
Understandable, thank you. What impact in real numbers will this action that you propose have on GHGs in North Cowichan?
Well, if you look at the average city or town, 40% of the greenhouse gases emitted by cities and towns are from the built environment, that it depends on how rapidly you're building out new houses. It'll be an incremental process, but over time it will have a dramatic impact. If you could answer the question of how many houses, new houses are built every year, which was a question that came up at Nanaimo last week, then I can probably do some calculations.
I think we can do that. I think we can do that calculation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
What impact will this have on global emissions? I don't think it'll have much because we don't emit overall in the whole scope of things. Our
Well,
GHG emissions are very, very small.
if you look at what's happening now, in that whole states in the US, California, Washington, New York are getting gas out of the built environment there. It's happening in European countries. It's happening across Canada. Vancouver was a leader in this move before there was the zero carbon step code. If you look at that, there's 40% of greenhouse gas emissions coming from cities all over the globe, and that number is global. The movement of this could be quite dramatic.
Mr. Mayor, a couple more quick ones.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that answer. Because I see China is building coal plants regularly. I just came back from India. I went to India end of March. I was there for 2.5 weeks, end of March to early April. And the greenhouse, nobody really cares about greenhouse gas emissions there. I think what you guys should do is actually target those countries that need the help, that need the education, rather than where we're doing things pretty good here. And we could be better, but we're doing pretty good. But I think you have larger impact if your organizations, the climate organizations actually go and work with those countries, they're the largest polluters of GHGs.
And what the research says around global change is some of the fastest, most effective change happens at the local level.
Yeah, but it's not happening in India, and they got the population.
Well, what I can say is it's up to you. You've been given the tools. I hope you have a really close look at them.
Yeah, we just say the GHGs are, they don't stop at borders. They don't stop in India. This,
Right.
Right. So
And
that's why
we've
we
got
should
ours
be-
here that we need to take care of. Thank you.
And I personally think we're doing a pretty good job with that. And you mentioned in your presentation just now that in Nanaimo, BC Hydro said in Nanaimo last week that they have enough electricity for new builds now. Is that the current builds now, or is that?
No,
future builds?
they said they have enough electricity that they have no worries about municipalities taking up the zero carbon bylaw at level 4, the highest level, and having enough electricity for that. They're required as a public corporation to have at least 12% surplus of what their projected use is. And they told Nanaimo Council that they were in good shape and that the capacity for renewables hasn't yet been exploited in the way that it could in British Columbia. That's what they said.
Okay, thanks. And one last one, Mr. Mayor.
This one before.
Yeah, I just want to say the forest fires and stuff, most of the forest fires of Vancouver Island were actually human caused. They weren't caused they were exacerbated by the dryness and the climate change, but they were caused, the majority on Vancouver Island were human caused. So I just want to make that.
There's always multiple causes. Human beings and the sparks from their cars or their campfires or whatever are often the immediate cause, but the dryness and the extent of the floors, they've done calculations on the percentage of that climate impacts have on that, and we're in double-digit numbers on that for sure.
Yeah, but just when they were originally caused by majority on Vancouver Island.
It's a complex system.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
but they were human caused, most on Vancouver Island.
I've got Councillor Finley, then Councillor Stash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said there's a list of 20 groups that make up the Cowichan Climate Hub.
Were you going to ask me to remember them all?
Yep.
I didn't bring my list. We've got 3 United Churches. We've got 6 or 8 nonprofit groups, both social benefit nonprofits and environmental nonprofits. We've got 4 or 5 farmers, a community supported fisheries business. And I can send you a list.
That'd be
I
great.
just didn't bring it with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And of those 20 groups, they all are of the same opinion. They back this
Yes.
statement you've made.
Yeah, because we have a theory of change and a set of purposes that this fits very neatly into.
Okay, thank you
They're
for
all
that.
concerned about the climate crisis.
Okay, just a couple more, Mr. Mayor, if that's fine. In this coming up, I put a poll on several neighborhood groups on Facebook last night because I wanted to get the community's understanding of where they are and what they believe as far as what the best use of or what the best decision that North Cowichan should make regarding gas. And the response was quite negative in comparison to your stance. There's a view that the majority of people want a gas backup for sure. They don't want to be handcuffed by having to go electric only, especially in new builds, but even in rehabs or as units end their life cycle. And so I thought it was quite fascinating. There was
I saw the poll. When I saw it, it said that there were very few people who were actually on gas.
So there's 631 respondents and only 45 had electric heat pumps. I happen to be one of them. I have an electric heat pump. I love my heat pump because I wanted air conditioning. That's the only reason I have my heat pump. It has nothing to do with, greenhouse gases or anything like that. I also have a gas fireplace, propane fireplace as well. So I think my question is, actually one of the comments made on Facebook here was, it's going to happen anyway. It isn't like the delegation has made this up. It was created by the province and it's happening whether you agree or not. Ms. Russell, you actually said that.
Yeah.
And I have a massive problem with that because we are an elected body here to make the best decisions for 32,000 residents. There's 2 elections coming up before 2030 when this might come in place. There's 2 provincial elections coming up in that time frame, and there's 2 federal elections coming up in that time frame. So that comment, well, frankly, it offends me, but I think it might be foolish for us to make a decision at any time in the future here at this table without it going to some sort of referendum or major community discussion, because taking away people's rights when it comes to their heating options is foolish. That's, sorry, it's not a question this time, that was a comment, thank you.
Yeah, and I did say that both efficient wood stoves on gas fireplaces are still allowed in terms of the recognition that many of us on the island live in a land of power outages. So I think the province, one of the councillors at Nanaimo, as they were having the conversation after they had all their delegations, said and I'm not saying this is my theory, but his theory was that the government would like progressive communities who care about climate change to take the lead so that it makes it easier for them when they're implementing it in 2030. And because they know we need to start now. That's why they've given you the power.
Can I just make a comment on that too? So maybe you looked a little earlier at the Facebook poll that there were 3,100 members on my neighborhood Facebook group. And I looked around 4 o'clock today, and there were 3.7 times more people who heated with electric heat pump, than with any kind of fossil fuel. So I'm not sure there were much higher numbers.
Yeah, we can go back and forth. I would just caution, I don't want to develop our policy in the municipality based on Facebook polls. That's not to diminish them. I think there's value in using various tools to get public input, so I don't want to diminish that at all, but would just want to caution that.
I just wanted to correct something that was incorrect.
And I think Councillor Finley had his hand up. I'll let you close, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Toporowski, and I'll go back to you if you have more
Thank
questions.
you. Actually, the numbers I quoted, I took off the page about 20 minutes ago. And over 25% of those that responded, not just on your page, but on Chemainus, Crofton, Duncan, inclusive Maple Bay as well, 27 or 28% are gas. They have gas, and they want gas, and they want to stay gas. So that's just my follow-up to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would just point out that the province and what they're giving municipalities the possibility of doing is only about new buildings.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Councillor Stash, then Councillor Toporowski, and then Councillor Kalia.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. My curiosity is, was that in the Nanaimo presentation, the BC Hydro portion of it, was that a separate document provided to them?
They presented in person
Oh, BC Hydro
at the meeting,
Okay.
as did Fortis.
I just was wondering if council could get that report, and then as well, that presentation, if we can just ensure that presentation goes to staff, as to follow up what Councillor Justice was saying, that there are works being done to research this, so that that's
It's about 2 hours to watch the whole
not
thing.
To watch it, but there would be the written report.
Their presentation is, Fortis was first and BC Hydro was towards the end. So if you want to find it, it's there.
So the reason I bring that up is that's relevant information, not knowing that not only that is their supply, but also within that supply is the 12% regulated surplus capacity that would still be achieved.
Yeah, the 12% is over and above what they said,
Yeah, so there's capacity built in there. And then as well, I'd just like to think that in that document, going from the emails we received, the 2 comments were, we're not gonna have enough power in emails, and then the other comments were, I want a backup in case of those, which seeing now and reading this more, and then you're presenting, and then speaking that we can still have backup heat sources. So those were two of the biggest questions, and those have been answered. So people still have the options, they still have the protections. We're still going to have the power, but I'd like to, of course, hear from staff on that down the road. And then as someone who spent my entire life working on drilling rigs and on oil rig floors, I understand the shift in the transition. I felt I saw it coming, so that's part of why I made the move in my life. My entire family works in oil and gas, and little things like this aren't going to be things against them because we're always going to need the building blocks of society. So changing in how we utilize them is what this is about. And I didn't really even know about heat pumps till I moved here, and I'm pretty shocked that currently through this winter, and I've shared it publicly before because I'm still blown away with it. My entire house is electric, and my BC hydro bill for the last 4 months has been $43 per month. In our coldest months this year, my power bill was $88. I live in an 1,800 square foot house, built in 1960, not the newest, most efficient house, but just being smart with my power and having a really high efficient heat pump, my power is extremely affordable, and I'm fortunate to have a heat pump and not baseboard heat, which is inefficient. So I welcome this, and then as well on the side thing is I expanded my business, and the expansion side of the business, that area had natural gas heat in it, and in that new area to heating, I'm paying double now. So we don't even need to talk about, we can pull the whole fossil fuel side about it. In BC, affordability is accomplished more so from electrification than natural gas. So we won't even need to talk about fossil fuels, and is my belief is that in BC with a renewable energy source, it's far more affordable for families and operations of our homes. So that's just personal experience. That's just mine. That isn't statistical or pulled for anything. I was just sharing what I've seen and observed as a resident and as a business owner. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Toporowski and then Councillor Calia.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jane and Valerie, for coming to present today. You know, I know that there also did an outdoor air quality. Shannon Waters was involved with that too as well. So now we're going to indoor. And I know some of the fears of when people thought they were getting rid of their wood stoves, or we had to get rid of them. That was a big fear in our community, and the cost of replacing something that we already have in our home is another thing. So other things like education on the effects of what this means in our indoor air quality. Also, it made me think about being at an event the other day when they had the gas stove and they turned the fan off so people could talk, right? And then I heard about this and I went, oh my gosh, like, okay. But that it's just about education and personal choice. I think that's another thing too. I think people are fearing that their personal choice will be taken away from them. And that's not what we're saying here. And again, this is just a delegation. So this is just education, and anybody could just apply to come and be a delegation here. So I do thank you for sharing your information. I know I made the switch from, I think we had the gas stove, gas fireplace, and we went to the newer air efficient, whatever, wood stove, the newer model. And but I'm a sensitive person. I have a very high sensitive and smell and everything, so the smoke was really bugging me. So we've gone to heat pump. But it was because of the rebates that the province was giving out. And I think those are other things where people are fearing that they're going to be left behind because they're not going to be able to afford to make these changes. And I think that's the fear that I'm hearing from our constituents right now. But if we can advocate to, you know, keep those choices open for everybody to make those changes. And, you know, I was sad to see people on the mainland, and probably in our here in the valley too, that live in apartment buildings that can't get the heat pump, if someone could afford to buy one, they weren't allowed to install one in their apartment because there's regulations with the landlords and stuff like that. So
And there are places that are working on changing those. There's been articles written on that, and there wasn't time in 10 minutes to go into the equity and affordability piece, but I agree it's really important.
Yeah, so I know, I just think that some of our constituents feel that their choice is being taken away, and that's not what we're doing. We're just talking about options, and it's a transition. So again, if, when I'm looking for a new car, my car's still pretty good. I'm looking to change that, and so what kind of car I'm saving, right? So you have to save too, but most people don't have that choice of making that save to make that big purchase and make those changes. Again, I think of looking at the overall construction of new buildings and whatnot, where we are going to that option through our policies and procedures through North Cowichan. And again, like the report will be coming to us, I think, did you say October? Something like that. Anyways, but I think that's, just some of the things that I've been hearing, and even our email's been flooded with a lot of worry about what that's going to look like. So thank you again.
Councillor Callio to close.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions, and one is the supplementary heat that people are having. I mean, if you don't install a gas stove in your house or some other supplementary heat, and I know you said earlier that you're okay with having efficient wood stoves, and I have one myself. And if it hadn't been for that, because we had power outage at our house when we had the big windstorm, and our power was out for 7 days. And so thank goodness we had that to cook on and to heat our home. But I'm worried about people in the valley who, there's a lot of different kinds of builds, and those are not able to put in a highly efficient wood stove. So the only other option really is to have a gas stove, and the ones that are in nowadays are extremely efficient. In our last home that we built, we had two of them in there, and I love my heat pump, and that's the first thing we did when we bought a 1974 house was install a heat pump, because it's highly efficient. And like Councillor Finley said, you've got air conditioning in the summertime. But that being said, in a place like the Cowichan Valley, with windstorms that we get on a regular basis every year, the power is definitely going to go out. And there hasn't been a year yet since we moved into our home that the power has not gone out for at least a day or two. If we accept this step code, can individual homeowners still, install a supplementary heat that will keep them warm in the wintertime and from freezing to death?
Well, the options in the step code are to have a wood stove, and they're not going to take away an existing wood stove because it doesn't it's not that detailed. You can have a wood stove, or you can have a gas fireplace, and we're just talking about new builds. So anybody who has that now is not going to lose that. And I think that probably the practical reality is, if there's a gas line going up your block and you wanted to install a gas fireplace, that wouldn't be too hard. But if you don't already have a gas line in your neighborhood, they're not going to bring in a gas line for a gas fireplace, I'm guessing. But in general, the other thing that is really coming is improved battery storage, and batteries. Like I have a wood stove, I have solar panels on my house, and I have a heat pump and electricity. But what I'm really looking for with what you're talking about are frequent power outages is I'm now consulting with the people about the updated batteries that will run my freezer and the things that matter while you're waiting for the power to come back on. So I think that what I've been reading is the technology is there. I haven't finished my research, so I don't know as much about it as I like, but battery backup for an electric home is coming and will just get more and more affordable.
Did you have another question? All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you, Ms. Kilthey, Ms. Russell, for the informative presentation. And as our staff indicated, we're going to be getting a report on the net zero step code in the coming weeks.
I look forward to that, and thank you very much for having us and for this conversation.
Thank you.